What fact do you wish you never knew? When X-ray technology first became widely available to pediatricians, they noticed a startling high number of broken bones. Befuddled doctors assumed there was a previously unknown pediatric bone disease being observed for the first time. Turns out we had no idea how common child abuse is. 3 of the air packs that were found on the wreckage of the Challenger disaster were activated, meaning at least one of the astronauts was alive all the way to the ocean. It's not a coincidence it was the last flight without pressure suits. NASA concluded that the crew likely lost consciousness due to the rapid decompression and G-forces, but ultimately died when the wreckage hit the water. The crew compartment was evidently intact until it hit the water. Doctors used to perform heart surgery on infants without anesthesia. Thankfully this practice was ended. In the 1980s, anesthesia was not that advanced. So for infants this could result in brain damage. Even today this can still occur. My neighbor's grandchild is now disabled because of anesthesia. Let's say it's 1975 minus your newborn child needs heart surgery in order to survive. With the surgery they have a very good chance of a complete recovery and totally normal life. They can successfully perform the surgery without anesthesia and the child won't remember anything. If you do give him anesthesia, there is a 20%, I just made up a hypothetical number, that the child will die or be permanently disabled. What would you do? Would the doctor really be a monster to pick the no anesthesia option? A turtle penis is nearly half the length of the turtle. They are the most well-endowed reptile. Cute. Hermit crabs evolved ultra-long penises that can grow to 60% of their body length, so they could have sex without leaving home. Source link. Goddamn, why am I suddenly so horny? Should I be worried? I learned female ducks have a long corkscrew-shaped vagina to defend against duck rape. The male ducks evolved a long corkscrew-shaped penis designed to get past their defenses and impregnate them. There is an evolutionary arms race between the two. There are videos on the internet. Just saying. I'm glad humans aren't rappy enough that our genitals evolved to cope with constant rape. Being a duck must be rough. It certainly isn't all it is quacked up to be. When your phone autocorrects ducking to ducking, it knows what it's doing. Orangutans create dildos out of wood. Elephants give trunk jobs to others and probably also to themselves. Male squids throw their dick and the female ducks itself. The male squid regenerates their dick if ever needed to again. Oh yay. It's going to be like that. Well, go duck yourself with this. Ripstick often throws it. I recently learned that Nutella has a sun protection factor of 9.7. Since then I can't stop thinking about that. Are you telling me I could have been using Nutella as sunscreen this whole time? Well, yes, but not very well. I mean an SPF below 10. My pale skin would be burned to a crisp just from looking out the window with that much protection. Anything and everything about Albert Fish. Man was a true degenerate. If you're faint of heart or have a weak stomach, do not look him up. Absolutely disgusting. I wish I could uneat everything I read about him. That guy was a real jerk. I remember being told eggs have a protein structure so similar to our blood that you could use blood as an egg substitute in cakes, etc. Really wish I wasn't told that. How do you think they make red velvet cupcake? Decomposing bodies. Generally, it could take about a year for the body to decompose into a skeleton in ordinary soil and 8 to 12 years to decompose a skeleton. And if a dead body is inside a coffin and buried deep underground, it could even take 50 years to decompose all tissues on the body. The rate of decomposition is also affected by clothing, with denim and tanned leather resulting in the best preservation rate of soft tissue. So if you're going to get murdered and dumped in a shallow grave, best make sure that you're dressed like the Fonz. Dolphins cut off the head of smaller fish and use it for masturbation. Nature is wonderful in it. Dolphins are apparently the spawn of Satan as well, considering their attitude towards some other marine life. Just the most human of marine life. Until the 1980s, people had no idea that orangutans had 2 different subspecies and ended up crossbreeding the 2. And the end result was known as the cocktail orangutan. The problem with these hybrid orangutans is, while they are fertile, They suffer numerous health issues, and allowing them to continue to breed will result in the orangutan population to diminish even more. There are face mites which live inside your pores next to your hair follicle, eat your sebum, don't have anuses, and come out at night to mate on your skin. And there's nothing you can do about it. I'm so sorry. Everything about this is terrifying, except the no anuses part. That's got me intrigued. Scientist looking under a microscope. It appears to be some kind of mite. It eats sebum, okay. Only comes out of the pores at night, okay. No anus. It gets better. They die and explode when they get too full of shit. Big ol' shit buckache for you. Baby koalas don't have the bacteria to digest eucalyptus when they are newborn. So they lick their mama asshole so she gets diarrhea, and then eat the diarrhea to be able to eat their ducking venomous eucalyptus. Chlamydia is also very common in koalas. Just everything about dementia. It's absolutely ducking terrifying. Having worked with many that suffered from it, absolutely it is terrifying and depressing. The best but most heartbreaking work I ever was involved in. When a morbidly obese person is being cremated, the oven doesn't need to get as hot as when a thin person being cremated due to the fat burning at a high temperature. The average polar bear liver contains enough vitamin A to kill 52 adults. Those bitter, sour, or otherwise nasty tasting pistachios had a worm, larva, or some other pest in them. I always assumed that I just needed to deal with a couple spoiled pistachios per bag and it's no big deal. Nope. Larvae. I've never had pistachios since learning this. Gross. I bit a grape in half once, just for shits, and there was a tiny green worm in it. Have never just popped grapes in my mouth ever since. Always have to check. Ugh. Why can't nature stay out of my favorite and processed natural foods? It doesn't even stay out of your processed foods. The FDA allows a certain amount of rat feces per 24-ounce container. You're welcome. As well as butt parts. Chocolate and peanut butter are the two highest allowable, meaning they allow the most butt parts. You're also welcome. There is microplastic in everything you eat and drink. Even the air you breathe contains plastic. At this point you can't eat, drink, or breathe anything without consuming some amount of microplastics. The ocean is polluted. The soil is polluted. Even the air is full of particles of plastic. And the worst part is most of it won't degrade or be turned back into organic matter for thousands of years. Microplastics were found in placentas, meaning unborn babies already get exposed. Watched a documentary about parasites a long time ago. I still wish I hadn't. That my dad hooked up with my step-grandma. Gross. Some secrets don't need to be shared, Dad. Your grandma probably got stuck. Your bones are warm and wet. Sounds cozy. You can grow teeth on your ovaries. The fungus that can take over a bug's brain and turn them into basically a real-life zombie ant. If a hospital tells you someone is going to die soon, they might talk about less than 2 hours. The hospital I work at has an identifier, a butterfly, on the door for these patients in their final moments. Edit typo. How far a human anus can be spread and how many raccoons will fit. There are more people in slavery today than at any other time in history. More than 40 million people around the world were victims of modern slavery in 2016, including about 25 million in forced labor and 15 million in forced marriages. Urine used to be an ingredient in stained glass. So now whenever I see old churches with stained glass, I think of piss-stained rainbow windows. Whales don't die from old age, they just lose the strength to pull themselves up for air and slowly sink and drown. If you sniff any odor, it means a tiny amount of the sniffed matter entered your nose. Therefore if you sniff vomit, there is no guarantee that all life on Earth won't end in the next moment, simply because the wrong type of radioactive space waves hit us. That many animals kill, rape, and torture for no better than reason than boredom. Like, they out there using each other's corpses as fleshlights. Any of those hippie types who says animals don't make war and animals don't torture, or animals don't murder unnecessarily has not been paying attention. Edit. Since someone asked about some of the horrors of nature, Shrikes, otherwise known as butcherbirds, enjoy impaling their prey on pointy things and making sure they stay there for hours, sometimes days, until they finally expire. Simorthoa exigua is a terrifyingly disgusting parasite that eats a fish's tongue and then replaces the tongue with themselves. Ducks and geese have been known to gang rape females so violently that they die from internal injuries or just straight up drown during. And that does not stop the mad mallards from finishing. Should be wielding out their homies. Why you think we developed houses? To keep the duck away from the abject horror that is nature. One of my coworkers had a duck that loved the rape. He even had a favorite chicken, to duck to the point where the chicken didn't have any feathers on the back of its neck anymore. He eventually sold the duck to someone, then later found out his duck tried raping another rapist duck and got killed by him. When I was younger, realizing that adults don't have a clue what they are doing half the time either was the biggest wake up call. Blood curdling fact: some guy took the biggest shit and he never knew that my mom has a collection of colorful dildos. There is fecal matter everywhere. The surgery with the highest mortality rate was 300%. How did this happen? Well, there was a surgeon called Robert Liston who was famous for his fast amputations. And when I say fast, I'm talking 30 seconds to 1 minute surgeries. 180x faster than amputations. Now this happened in the 1800s. One day he was performing an amputation, but accidentally amputated much more than he should have, due to the fact that the patient was thrashing about in pain while assistants held them down as there was no anesthetic at the time. He was amputating so fast that he cut through his assistant's finger. The surgical tools were probably dirty as both the patient and the assistant died of infections. As for the third guy, people enjoyed watching Liston perform surgeries, and he was at the front of the crowd. Liston slashed the spectator's coat, which supposedly caused the spectator to die of shock, likely a heart attack. Too long didn't read. Doctor amputated guy cuts assistant and slashed spectator's coat, causing all three to die. When someone is beaten and suffers blunt force trauma to the back of the head, it isn't brain damage that kills them. Most of the time it damages the bones in the roof of your mouth and nose, and the bleeding from these highly vascular areas make the person drown in their own blood. Right now, your government is doing things you think only other governments do. That if you think or imagine licking anything, it doesn't matter what it is. You just know what it feels like. Your tongue just knows. I wish I never knew how corrupt the world is, but also how unwilling people are to believe the truth. It can start to drive you insane. Ted Bundy would routinely revisit victims. He would hide in the mountains and engage in necrophilia, sometimes weeks or months after they were murdered. He would also bring with him makeup, perfume and women's clothing to dress them up. The news, documentaries, and movies always gloss over this. He was a monster, and yet somehow people viewed him as sympathetic and misunderstood. That there are people out there in the world right now who traffic children and people who will willingly rape infants not even a week old. Some humans are pure evil scum that need to be squished into oblivion. And to those people, I wish for them to develop a sudden incurable disease that causes every nerve in their body to detect constant, searing pain that only becomes stronger with every sensation. Because the vagina shares a wall with your exit pipe, it is apparently possible to manually relieve constipation by going into the vagina and pressing from the other side. That multiple highly paid executives from tech companies reviewed and signed off, thinking that the Applebee's fancy like commercial would be a good idea. The 5-year survival rate for all people with all types of lung cancer is 21%. The 5-year survival rate for men is 17%. The 5-year survival rate for women is 24%. The 5-year survival rate for NSCLC is 25%, compared to 7% for small cell lung cancer. After the Tiananmen Square massacre, to get rid of the bodies, Chinese tanks drove over them and pancaked them, so troops could easily just use hoses to wash them into the gutters. So here's one that hurts my brain every time I think of it. Female hyenas have a penis. Okay, not so bad, right? But the worst part is, guess how they give birth? Yep, they give birth out of the little penis. and sometimes the baby can get stuck and suffocate and the mother could die if the baby gets stuck as well. I think it surely is a painful process. Edit. Okay, I know it's not a penis, but it looks exactly like one, so y'all don't have to keep reminding me that it is not a penis. Every love story is destined to end a tragedy. At the very best, one party will die and leave the other party alone.